Hey everybody, Beth Helvey, Couture Real Estate. I hope you're doing good today. It is Monday, October 5th, and it is rainy and cloudy and gross. We've got a system out in the Gulf right now, so everything's going to be kind of drizzly and moist for the week. Anyway, I want to talk to you a little bit about how our market here in Southwest Florida is different than probably where you're coming from. So everybody around the country, with probably the exception of one or two isolated areas, is having a housing boom right now. Real estate is selling really well. Real estate is doing well. People are buying properties, people are selling properties, and with colleagues across the country, I hear stories about, when they put in something for their buyer, they're one of 10 offers, or I've even heard crazier numbers like that. And how are buyer agents making their offers more appealing to try to, get that leg up with sellers and things like that. There's people who are purchasing properties that are paying over asking price. So we've got some of that going on. Hi, Callie. So here in Southwest Florida, we do have an inventory issue where, depending on what kind of property you're looking at, which by that I mean either a condo, townhouse, or single family home, and depending on where, and by that I mean Sarasota County, Manatee County, we're looking at somewhere between 2 to 2.5 months of inventory. That is low inventory. We prefer to see things around 5 or 6 months. And what that means is that there's enough sellers out there to make the buyers coming to the area happy with a difference in inventory, things from which to choose. And there's enough buyers in the area for sellers to be able to sell their property. And they should be able to sell their property within 3 or 4 months because that's just how the numbers work. So what we're doing right now is we've got a lot less inventory. Now, there's parts of the country where they're joking, saying they've got 10 minutes of inventory or a week of inventory, and they're not really that far off because the inventory is so very low. Those areas of the country still hadn't jumped up in their inventory numbers from the housing crash, 12, 13 years ago, but we did. So we were able to get a bit of a leg up. We had more inventory before COVID, and we still have a little bit more inventory than other parts of the country do. See, this is where we're different. A lot of the rest of the country, people move out of need, and oftentimes it is job related. So people are moving closer to jobs, or they're getting a job transfer, or they're changing jobs altogether. So there's more of a need-based issue going on with housing. Here is different. We have a very large majority of people that move to the area because they want to. Now, when I first moved to Sarasota in 1983, our median age, was somewhere between 65 and 70. And I don't remember what the exact number was, but I do remember it was higher than that. Now, Sarasota's median age is in the upper 40s, lower 50s. So you can see that our numbers are coming down. We've got more schools, we've got more kids here, so our population is kind of changing in that we have more families moving to the area. And they're doing that for 3 reasons. Sometimes it's because they have family here, but more often than not, it's because the Northeast taxes are just astronomically high, their property taxes, and they're trying to get out of the snow. They're moving here for the same reason their retired counterparts are moving here, is to get away from that weather. And they can, because so many of us work from home. So I have worked with a lot of families. A couple of them moved here out of necessity. They got an actual job transfer. I think there was 3 in the last 4 years. The rest of the families that moved here because they wanted to. They wanted to raise their kids here, or they had family here. They wanted to get out of the snow. They were done with the snow or done with the taxes. I heard of a lot of families where they could afford their mortgage and they could afford to care for their house, but they couldn't pay their taxes anymore because the taxes had gotten so high. So that's kind of the situation where we're in now. I mean, don't forget, we've got, roughly speaking, 1,000 people a day crossing the border into the state of Florida to move here. So here's where we're different. We still have those younger people moving to the area, which is bringing our age down, increasing our schools, getting us more schools and things like that. But we still have a large number of people who are moving here for retirement. So they're either pre-retirement, which means maybe they're in their 50s and they want to put their toe in the water, as it were, and get that place now. And they'll come a couple times a month, maybe rent it out, maybe not, maybe let other family people use it, but they'll have a place here because this is where they've decided they want to land. We have the people who are snowbirds. They'll come here for 3 or 6 months out of the year. And then we have the people who permanently retire here. Those people are looking at property completely differently. These people are moving out of desire, not out of need. And when you move out of desire, your way of looking at property and your way of buying property is different. So, I executed a contract this weekend on one of my listings. The buyer hadn't seen the property. They're familiar with the model. They're not even going to come to town until after closing because it's a part-time winter home for them. Their investment in it is a little different. They're more invested in the area and in the neighborhood than the house. Now, down the road, they might change their minds and upgrade or downgrade. I'm working with somebody right now who's doing that very same thing. They've got a smaller place and they're going to upgrade to a bigger place because they're going to be here more. But when we have people who move here out of desire and not out of need, they are less likely to get all kind of tangled up in these bidding wars. More often than not, if I go back to a buyer and say it's a multiple offer situation, more often than not, my buyers will go, let's wait and see what happens. If they absolutely fall head over heels in love with the house, they'll jump in. But if not, they're not going to. And more often than not, that is the case. So, back in 2014 and 2015, when our inventory was really low, I had a lot of buyers go home without keys. And there were two very big reasons. One was they didn't find anything they liked that just suited what they wanted. Because let's not forget, prices were also really low. The other reason is they're looking at properties and that seller is seeing that the inventory is low. And we did do some anticipatory pricing. In other words, we saw that if we listed a property on one day, by the time it closed, prices were going up rapidly enough for a certain amount of time that we would kind of price ahead. But there were still some people who priced even more ahead of that. And more buyers would go, I don't care. I don't have to buy. I can come back in 6 months. I can come back next year. I'm not paying that stupid price. And I saw a lot of that and I'm seeing it again. So we have a lot of people who are trying to get out of the north this time, besides it being for, because winter is coming, as they say. Part of it is they're trying to get out of the more densely populated cities, and we are very spread out here. They're still not going to pay those prices because they don't have to. What they're doing is, for example, this morning I got an email that a buyer decided not to buy here because they're going to buy out west instead. I had another email from a buyer that said, oh my gosh, we fell in love with something. Can you look into it for us? We're going to move up our timeline here. That's how it works here. You just don't know. Buyers will walk away. So what do? Sellers, inventory is low. You still have to price appropriately. You still have to make sure that your house is ready to sell, that your house is ready to show, that you have your end set up properly so that when the buyer walks in the door, first we got to get them at the door. But when the buyer comes, you're prepared to do that. We can't play hardball here because your buyer will walk away because they don't have to buy your house. Hey, Joe, buyers, be prepared. Yes, there are multiple offer situations, but there's still agents out there who are not presenting offers with proof of funds and pre-approvals. Make sure you have it. Be ready, be prepared, because you'd rather have the ability that if you don't get the offer in time, that you can walk away and look at something else, or you can decide, you know what? I don't want to get involved in this. I want to go someplace else. But you'll be ready. You'll be the first one in with your information. And that is the situation we're dealing with here. So just because our inventory is low, and yes, our prices are rising, it's a bit more of a normal year-over-year increase. It doesn't necessarily mean that sellers can price real high because inventory is low. We're not there, and our prices weren't low to begin with, abnormally low, like they were a decade ago. Okay, or 2013, 14, 15, normally low like they were then, because the buyers will walk away. So they're buying these as second homes and third homes. They're buying them because they're eventually going to retire, or they want a vacation property until they're here more full time, and they're willing to take their money elsewhere. Okay, when people come to my area, which is Sarasota, Manatee County, sometimes they have a specific area or type of property in mind. more often than not, they're starting in Tampa and looking all the way down to Naples, or they're looking over on this coast and the other coast, or they're looking here and maybe out west, or, South Carolina on the water or something like that. They're looking everywhere because they're looking to have a different kind of life, which is a more leisurely, relaxed retirement that they've been working so hard for. So that's where we are. So when people ask me what the market is like, yeah, we're moving fast. The market's on fire. We are writing offers. We are putting listings on the market. Things are going quickly when they're priced right and presented properly. We still have to somewhat act like it's a normal market to appease those buyers. This is not, a market where things are just flying off the shelves unless they're properly done. Okay? So sellers, when you are listing your property, list appropriately. We're not going to list high. We can't do that because it won't bring the buyers. They'll take their money and go someplace else because there's other choices and they have the ability to do this. Okay. Buyers, be aware of this. There still are sellers out there overpricing. But be prepared. Have your proof of funds. Know what you can afford. Know what you're comfortable with. Have your pre-approval so that you know what your monthly output is going to be and where you're comfortable. Walk into the situation understanding what you need and don't need, as it were, so that you can effectively negotiate this. That'll help more than anything else. Preparation is always best. So basically in Southwest Florida, that's it. I've had a lot of questions over the last 3 or 4 days. People seem to think that because there's low inventory that they're not going to find anything, which is not necessarily true. And they also think that our prices are going to go through the roof, which is also not necessarily true. And I've also got that handful of people waiting for the bottom to fall out because of all the foreclosures. That's also not necessarily true. Okay. So that's the way it is here. Where you live up north may be very different, but your buyers and your sellers are moving for different reasons than they are here. People here move because they want to, not because they have to. It's a whole different way of looking at it. Okay, I hope y'all are having a great day. It is about 80 degrees and misty and kind of rainy off and on. And if you have the opportunity to go outside, I encourage you to do so. Drink lots of water, wear your sunscreen. If you have any questions about the market, throw it in the comments or send me a DM. I'm happy to answer anything. And if it needs to be more specific, I'm happy to do that as well. If you have any questions on real estate in general, throw it in the comments or send me a DM. I love hearing what you guys have to ask. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.